Isabella Munro stood at the edge of the ballroom, watching the man who just walked away from her empire disappear through the glass doors into the storm. For 12 years, she'd built Meridian Tech into a billion-dollar fortress. Men had begged for her attention. Competitors had trembled at her name. Board members had bowed to her vision. But Noah Bennett, a senior analyst wearing a department store suit, had just checked his watch, smiled politely, and left her standing alone because his daughter was waiting at home. She didn't know it yet, but that single moment would destroy everything she thought she understood about power. Welcome to a story about the woman who had everything and the man who showed her she had nothing. If you're watching from anywhere in the world, drop your city in the comments below. I want to see how far this story travels. And if it hits you somewhere deep, hit that like button. Now, let's go back to where it all started. The October storm hit Chicago like a fist. Isabella Munro stood perfectly still near the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Grand Meridian Ballroom, watching lightning crack the sky above Lake Michigan. Rain hammered the glass in sheets, distorting the city lights into abstract streams of gold and red. 300 guests filled the space behind her, venture capitalists in $1,000 suits, tech journalists clutching champagne flutes, board members laughing too loud at jokes that weren't funny. The annual Meridian Tech Gala. Her company, her empire. She was 30 years old and controlled a billion-dollar corporation. Forbes had called her the youngest self-made female CEO in the Midwest. TechCrunch had run a profile titled The Ice Queen of Innovation. Her face had been on the cover of Wired Fast Company and Bloomberg Business Week. She'd given a TED Talk that got 4 million views. She'd turned down acquisition offers from Google and Microsoft because she didn't answer to anyone. And tonight, standing in a custom Armani gown that cost more than most people's cars, watching 300 people celebrate her success, Isabella felt absolutely nothing. Miss Munro? She didn't turn. Her assistant Claire appeared at her elbow with a practiced smile. The mayor wants a photo, and the Tribune reporter is asking about the expansion into Europe. Tell the mayor I'll find him in 15 minutes, Isabella said. Tell the reporter to read the press release we sent this morning. Claire nodded and disappeared back into the crowd. She'd worked for Isabella for 3 years and had learned not to argue. Isabella took a slow breath and forced herself to turn back toward the ballroom. The space was stunning. She'd made sure of that. Crystal chandeliers hung like frozen explosions above the crowd. Ice sculptures shaped like circuit boards slowly melted on pedestals near the bar. A jazz quartet played something smooth and forgettable in the corner. Everything was perfect because Isabella didn't do imperfect. She scanned the room with the same cold precision she used to analyze quarterly reports. Martin Reeves from the board, already drunk, gesturing wildly at someone's wife. Sarah Kim from operations, networking with the intensity of someone trying to justify her existence. Victor Langford, her VP of strategic development, working the room like a politician, all white teeth and firm handshakes. Victor caught her eye and raised his glass. Isabella gave him a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She knew exactly what he was: ambitious, calculating, dangerous. He wanted her job. He'd been angling for it since the day she promoted him. She kept him close because it was easier to watch a snake when you knew where it slept. Isabella. Jennifer Wu, her chief technology officer, appeared with 2 champagne glasses. She pressed one into Isabella's hand. "You look like you're about to fire someone," Jennifer said. "Relax. This is supposed to be a party." "I don't relax." "I know. That's why I'm worried about you." Jennifer clinked her glass against Isabella's. "When was the last time you took a vacation? And I don't mean a working vacation where you answer emails from a beach in Bali. Bali was 4 years ago." "Exactly my point." Isabella sipped her champagne. "It was excellent. Dom Perignon because she'd specified nothing less. It tasted like expensive bubbles. I'll relax when the Q4 numbers close." "You said that about Q3. Q3 wasn't complicated." Jennifer studied her for a moment. They'd known each other since grad school at MIT, back when Isabella was still human enough to stay up until 3 in the morning eating pizza and debugging code. Now Jennifer was one of maybe 3 people in the world who would tell Isabella the truth. "You know what your problem is?" Jennifer said. "I'm sure you're about to tell me. You've forgotten how to be a person. You're just a CEO now. All business, all the time. You're 30 years old, Izzy. You should be, don't call me Izzy, living your life, dating, having fun, making mistakes." "I don't make mistakes." Jennifer laughed. Yeah, that's definitely the problem. Before Isabella could respond, Victor Langford materialized beside them with the smooth confidence of someone who believed he belonged everywhere. Ladies, he said, flashing that politician smile. Spectacular event, Isabella. The board is very impressed. They should be, Isabella said. We're up 18% this quarter. Indeed, though I did want to discuss the Whitmore account. There's been some concern about the implementation timeline. Isabella's eyes went cold. This isn't the time, Victor. Of course not. I just thought, you thought wrong. She smiled, and it was the smile that made competitors nervous. Enjoy the party. Victor's jaw tightened, but he knew better than to push. He nodded and retreated back into the crowd. Jennifer whistled low. You're going to regret making an enemy of him. I didn't make an enemy. He made himself one when he started trying to undermine me with the board. Isabella set down her untouched champagne. He forgets who built this company. Just be careful. Men like Victor don't forget being humiliated. Then he shouldn't have tried to corner me at my own party. The lights dimmed slightly, and the jazz quartet shifted into something slower, more intimate. Couples drifted toward the center of the ballroom to dance. Isabella watched them with the detached interest of an anthropologist studying a foreign culture. Romance, partnership, connection. All things that required vulnerability, and vulnerability was weakness. She'd learned that lesson early. Her father had been vulnerable, kind, generous, trusting. He'd built a small software company in the 90s, then lost everything when his partner stole his code and sold it to a competitor. Isabella had been 12 years old when she watched him sit at the kitchen table, crying into his hands, broken by betrayal. She'd promised herself that day that nobody would ever break her. And they hadn't. She'd put herself through MIT on scholarships and spite, built Meridian Tech from nothing, just her and a laptop in a basement apartment, living on ramen and coffee, coding 18 hours a day until her eyes bled. 5 years of brutal work, strategic brilliance, and absolute ruthlessness. No partners, no investors she couldn't control, no weaknesses. Now she stood at the top, untouchable, and completely alone. Miss Monroe? Isabella turned. Claire had returned, but this time she wasn't alone. A man stood slightly behind her, tall, maybe 6 feet, early 30s, with dark hair that was slightly too long and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He wore a charcoal suit that was nice but not expensive, and he looked profoundly uncomfortable. This is Noah Bennett, Claire said, senior analyst from the Data Intelligence Division. He wanted to introduce himself. The man, Noah, stepped forward and extended his hand. Miss Monroe, I'm sorry to interrupt. I know you're busy. Isabella shook his hand automatically. His grip was firm but not aggressive, and his palm was slightly rough, like someone who did work outside of an office. Mr. Bennett, I don't believe we've met. No, ma'am. I've been with Meridian for about 3 years. I work on the Whitmore project, the implementation timeline Victor mentioned. Isabella's interest sharpened slightly. And it's fine. We're ahead of schedule, actually. I don't know where he got his information, but the concern isn't real. She studied him more carefully. Most of her employees either fawned over her or avoided eye contact entirely. Noah did neither. He just stood there, calm and direct, like someone delivering a weather report. You're saying my VP of Strategic Development is lying to me? I'm saying he's misinformed, Noah said carefully, or he's operating with outdated data. The integration testing closed successfully last week. We're in good shape. Isabella felt something like respect flicker through her irritation. And you came all the way across the ballroom to tell me this? I came because I saw Victor talking to you, and I figured you should have accurate information. He paused. Also, Claire mentioned you'd want to know. Claire, standing slightly behind Noah, gave Isabella a subtle nod. Smart woman. I appreciate the clarification, Isabella said, though in the future, an email would suffice. You didn't need to interrupt your evening. Oh, I wasn't... Noah stopped himself and smiled slightly. Yeah, you're right. I'll remember that. There was something in that smile. Not flirtation, not ambition, just genuine warmth. Isabella found it oddly unsettling. Jennifer, who'd been watching this exchange with barely concealed amusement, stuck out her hand. Jennifer Wu, CTO. You're the analyst who fixed the Hartman data corruption problem last month. Noah shook her hand. That was mostly the team. I just identified the root cause. Don't be modest. That save was brilliant. It was necessary, Noah said. The alternative was losing 6 months of customer analytics. Isabella watched him deflect the praise with the same calm directness he'd used to correct Victor's misinformation. No false humility, no fishing for compliments, just facts. So, Mr. Bennett, she said, are you enjoying the party? It's impressive, he said, glancing around the ballroom. Though I'll be honest, I'm not really a party person. I mostly came because attendance was strongly encouraged. Jennifer laughed. At least he's honest. Honesty is rare, Isabella said, still studying him. There was something different about this man, something she couldn't quite identify. He didn't look at her the way most people did, with fear or calculation or poorly disguised attraction. He just looked at her like she was another person. It was deeply strange. Well, I should let you get back to your evening, Noah said. He nodded to both of them. Ms. Monroe, Dr. Wu. He started to turn away, and Isabella found herself saying, Wait. He stopped, looking back at her with mild curiosity. She had no idea why she'd stopped him, no idea what she wanted to say. This was ridiculous. She didn't do this, didn't engage in meaningless small talk with mid-level analysts at corporate events. The Whitmore Project, she said, grasping for something professional. You said you're ahead of schedule. How far ahead? About 2 weeks. We optimized the data migration process, found some inefficiencies in the original timeline. Initiative like that should be rewarded. I'll make sure your supervisor knows. That's not necessary, ma'am. I disagree. Meridian values innovation. Noah smiled again, and again it was that unsettling warmth. I appreciate that, but I'm not really doing it for recognition. I'm doing it because it's my job. Before Isabella could respond to that incomprehensible statement, Noah checked his watch, a simple Timex, not a Rolex or an Apple Watch, and his expression shifted. I'm sorry, he said. I need to go. Go? Isabella glanced at her own watch. It was barely 8:30. The party's just started. I know, but I have a hard stop at 9 o'clock. I need to get home. A hard stop, Isabella repeated. She wasn't used to people having hard stops that didn't involve her permission. My daughter, Noah said simply. I promised I'd read her a bedtime story. I don't break promises to my daughter. And just like that, everything about him made sense. The lack of ambition, the indifference to recognition, the calm confidence of someone whose priorities existed completely outside of Isabella's world. He had a child, a daughter, waiting at home, a life that mattered more than networking or impressing the CEO. How old? Jennifer asked, her voice softening in a way Isabella had never quite managed. 7. Emma. She's... Noah's whole face changed when he said his daughter's name, softened, lit up. She's everything. That's sweet, Jennifer said. Noah checked his watch again. I really do need to go. It was nice meeting both of you. He nodded once more and turned away, moving through the crowd with the purposeful stride of someone who knew exactly where he needed to be. Isabella watched him disappear through the glass doors into the storm, watched him jog through the rain toward the parking garage, watched until he was completely gone. Well, Jennifer said, that was different. Isabella didn't respond. She was still staring at the doors, feeling something she couldn't quite name. Not attraction, though Noah Bennett was objectively attractive in a quiet, understated way. Not curiosity, though she was definitely curious about how someone could work at Meridian for 3 years without her knowing he existed. It was something deeper, something uncomfortable. For the first time in 12 years, Isabella Monroe had met someone who looked at power and chose something else instead. You okay? Jennifer asked. Fine. Isabella turned back to the party, to the crowd of people who wanted things from her, who measured their worth by proximity to her success. I need to talk to the mayor. But even as she moved through the ballroom, shaking hands and accepting congratulations, and maintaining the perfect mask of the Ice Queen of Innovation, part of her mind kept returning to the image of Noah Bennett checking his watch and choosing his daughter over everything Isabella had built. And for reasons she didn't understand and absolutely refused to examine, that choice made her feel more alone than she'd felt in years. The party continued for another 3 hours. Isabella worked the room with mechanical efficiency, hitting all the required notes. She posed for photos with the mayor and 3 city council members. She gave a brief speech thanking everyone for their support and announcing Meridian's expansion into European markets. She endured a tedious conversation with an investor who wanted to explain cryptocurrency to her as if she didn't have 2 degrees from MIT. By midnight, her face hurt from smiling. She was one of the last to leave, standing in the empty ballroom while the catering staff cleaned up around her. The storm had passed, leaving the city washed clean and glittering under clearing skies. Through the windows, she could see Lake Michigan stretching dark and vast toward the horizon. "Miss Monroe," Claire approached with Isabella's coat. "Your car's waiting downstairs." "Thank you, Claire. Go home. It's late." "Are you sure you don't need—" "I'm sure. Get some rest." Claire hesitated, then nodded and left. She knew better than to argue when Isabella used that particular tone. Isabella stood alone in the empty ballroom, listening to the clink of glasses and the scrape of chairs being stacked. Her phone buzzed. She pulled it out and saw 17 emails, 3 texts from board members, and a message from her apartment building's concierge about a furniture delivery. No personal messages, no friends checking in, no family asking how the party went. Just business. Always business. She pulled on her coat and headed for the elevator, her heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. The car ride home was silent, just her and Marcus, her driver, who'd learned years ago that Isabella didn't do small talk. Her penthouse was in one of those glass towers overlooking the lake, all clean lines and expensive minimalism. She'd bought it 2 years ago and had it professionally decorated by someone from Architectural Digest. It was featured in a magazine spread titled Where Success Lives. 1,200 square feet of pristine white walls, designer furniture, and carefully curated art. It looked like a hotel. Isabella dropped her keys in the bowl by the door, kicked off her heels, and walked to the windows. The city spread out below her, millions of lights, millions of people, all of them smaller than her, beneath her, irrelevant to her success. She should have felt triumphant. The gala had been perfect. The expansion announcement had been met with enthusiasm. Meridian stock would probably jump another few points when the market opened Monday. Instead, she felt hollow. Her phone buzzed again. She ignored it. On the coffee table, her laptop sat open to the Meridian employee directory. She'd pulled it up earlier for something work-related, but now, standing in her empty penthouse at 1 a.m, Isabella found herself typing a name into the search bar. Noah Bennett. His employee profile appeared. Senior Analyst, Data Intelligence Division. Hired 3 years ago. Bachelor's degree in Computer Science from the University of Illinois, Master's in Data Analytics from Northwestern. Clean performance reviews. No disciplinary issues. No ambitions for promotion, according to the notes from his last evaluation. There was a photo, the standard corporate headshot everyone took during onboarding. Noah looked slightly uncomfortable in it, like someone who didn't enjoy being photographed. But his eyes were kind, even in that stiff, formal context. Isabella closed the laptop. This was ridiculous. She was the CEO of a billion-dollar company, and she was standing in her penthouse at 1 a.m. looking up mid-level analysts like some kind of stalker. She poured herself 2 fingers of whiskey from the bottle of Macallan 25 on the bar cart, a gift from a board member trying to curry favor, and sat down on the couch. The leather was Italian, expensive, and deeply uncomfortable. Like everything else in her life, it looked better than it felt. She thought about Noah Bennett jogging through the rain to get home to his daughter. She thought about the way his face had changed when he said her name. Emma. She's everything. She thought about the fact that nobody's face changed like that when they thought about Isabella. The whiskey burned going down. Her phone rang. She almost didn't answer, but the caller ID showed Jennifer's name. "You're up late," Isabella said. "So are you." Jennifer's voice was warm with concern. "I wanted to check in. You seemed off tonight." "I was fine." "Izzy, don't call me that. You stood in a room full of people celebrating your success, and you looked like you wanted to be anywhere else." Isabella took another drink. "I was tired." "Bullshit. I've seen you run 18-hour days and show up to meetings looking like you just stepped out of Vogue. This was different." "What do you want me to say, Jen?" There was a pause. When Jennifer spoke again, her voice was gentler. "I want you to admit that you're lonely." The word hit Isabella like a physical blow. She set down her glass carefully, precisely, the way she did everything. "I'm not lonely," she said. "I'm busy." "Those aren't mutually exclusive. I have everything I need." "Do you?" Jennifer sighed. "When was the last time you had dinner with someone who wasn't a business associate? When was the last time you went on a date? When was the last time you let someone see you as something other than the Ice Queen?" "That's not who I am anymore." "That's exactly my point. You've erased yourself to become this perfect, untouchable CEO. And yeah, you're successful as hell, but Izzy, you're also fucking miserable." Isabella wanted to argue, wanted to explain that loneliness was the price of success, that vulnerability was weakness, that she'd built an empire by refusing to need anyone. Instead, she said, "I saw you talking to that analyst tonight, Noah Bennett." Jennifer's tone shifted, becoming carefully neutral. "Yeah? What do you know about him?" "Not much. He's brilliant. Solved that Hartman problem in about 3 hours when my whole team had been stuck on it for a week. Quiet. Keeps to himself. Why?" "Just curious." "Izzy, I've known you for 10 years. You're never just curious." Isabella stood and walked back to the windows, phone pressed to her ear. He left the party at 8:30. Said he had to get home to read his daughter a bedtime story. "Okay." He walked away from the most important networking event of the year to read a 7-year-old a bedtime story. "And you find that interesting?" "I find it incomprehensible." Isabella pressed her forehead against the cold glass. "Who chooses a bedtime story over career advancement?" "Someone who has their priorities straight," Jennifer said quietly. "Someone who understands that success means nothing if you're alone at the end of the day." The words echoed in Isabella's mind like an accusation. "I should go," she said. "It's late." "Will you think about what I said? About maybe taking a step back, remembering that you're human?" "I'll think about it." Liar. "Good night, Jen." Isabella ended the call and stood at the window for a long time, watching the city lights blur and refocus. Somewhere out there, Noah Bennett was probably asleep in a house that actually felt like a home, with a daughter who loved him more than any empire. And Isabella Monroe, brilliant CEO, youngest self-made billionaire in the Midwest, stood alone in her expensive glass tower and wondered, for the first time in years, if she'd built the wrong thing. She finished her whiskey, set the glass in the sink, and went to bed. But she didn't sleep. She kept seeing Noah's face when he said his daughter's name, kept hearing Jennifer's voice asking when was the last time anyone saw her as something other than the Ice Queen, kept feeling the hollow ache of knowing that tomorrow she'd wake up in this beautiful, empty penthouse, and nobody would be waiting to have breakfast with her. Nobody would care if she came home. Nobody would run into her arms like she was the safest place in the world. At 3 in the morning, Isabella got up and went back to her laptop. She pulled up Noah Bennett's employee file again, and this time she started reading everything. Isabella didn't go into the office on Monday. This was unprecedented. In 12 years, she'd never missed a Monday. She'd worked through the flu, through a broken wrist, through the weekend her mother died. Mondays were sacred. The day she set the tone for the entire week, the day she reminded everyone who was in charge. But that Monday morning, she sat in her penthouse with her laptop and a cup of coffee that had gone cold 2 hours ago, reading everything she could find about Noah Bennett. It wasn't stalking, she told herself. It was due diligence. He was an employee. She was the CEO. She had every right to understand who worked for her. The employee files told her the basics. Noah had joined Meridian 3 years ago after working for a smaller analytics firm. His references had been glowing. His performance reviews were consistently strong, though his supervisors noted, with some frustration, that he refused every promotion offered. He left the office at 5 o'clock sharp every single day, never worked weekends, never answered emails after hours. In any other employee, this would have been a red flag. In Chicago's cutthroat tech scene, dedication meant sacrifice. It meant answering emails at midnight. It meant choosing the company over everything else. But Noah's actual work was flawless. His analysis was sharp, his problem-solving creative, his execution efficient. He just did it all between 9 and 5, then disappeared like Cinderella at midnight. Isabella found his LinkedIn profile next. It was sparse, no motivational quotes, no thought leadership posts, no humble bragging about awards or achievements, just his job history and education. His profile picture showed him smiling slightly, like someone had told a bad joke and he was being polite. There was nothing about his personal life. No mention of a daughter. No mention of being a single parent. She switched to Facebook, feeling the uncomfortable heat of shame creeping up her neck. This definitely crossed a line. But she typed his name anyway. His profile was set to private, but his cover photo was public. It showed a little girl with dark curls and Noah's kind eyes, holding up a painting of what might have been a rainbow or possibly a very colorful bridge. The girl's smile was gap-toothed and enormous. Emma. Isabella stared at that photo for 10 minutes. There was something in the way Noah had photographed his daughter. Not posed, not perfect, just purely, radiantly happy. The kind of happiness that came from feeling completely loved and completely safe. Isabella couldn't remember the last time she'd felt that way. Her phone buzzed. Jennifer. Where are you? Jennifer's voice was sharp with concern. You missed the leadership meeting. I'm working from home. You never work from home. I do now. Isabella closed her laptop. What did I miss? Victor's trying to push through changes to the Whitmore timeline. Says we need to be more aggressive with the rollout. Isabella's eyes narrowed. The timeline Noah said was ahead of schedule? The very same. I told him you'd need to approve any changes, but he's already scheduled a meeting with the client for Wednesday. Cancel it. I can't. He went directly to the board, got Martin Reeves to sign off. Isabella felt anger spike through her chest. Martin Reeves was the board member who'd been drunk at the gala, the one who forgot Isabella had saved his investment 3 times over. Call an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning, 9 sharp. Isabella, do it, Jen. Victor's trying to make moves while I'm not looking. I need to shut this down before it becomes a problem. She hung up and stood, pacing to the windows. This was what happened when you showed even a moment of weakness. Victor had noticed her distraction at the gala, had seen an opening, and was moving to exploit it. She should have been furious, should have been planning her counterattack, strategizing how to destroy Victor's credibility in front of the board. Instead, she kept thinking about a 7-year-old girl with a gap-toothed smile, holding up a painting for her father. This was pathetic. Isabella forced herself back to her laptop, pulled up the quarterly reports, and tried to focus on actual work. But her mind kept drifting. She thought about Noah checking his watch at the gala. She thought about the way he'd deflected praise with simple honesty. She thought about how he'd said, I don't break promises to my daughter, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. By 3 in the afternoon, Isabella had accomplished exactly nothing. She slammed her laptop shut, grabbed her keys, and headed for the door. The October air was crisp and cool, the city still damp from the weekend storm. Isabella walked 4 blocks to a small coffee shop she'd never been to, the kind of place with mismatched furniture and local art on the walls and baristas who actually smiled at customers. She ordered a latte and sat by the window, watching people pass by on the sidewalk. A young couple walked past, holding hands and laughing at something on one of their phones. A woman in scrubs, probably just off a hospital shift, shuffled by with exhausted eyes. An old man walked a small dog that seemed supremely uninterested in walking. Normal people, living normal lives, having normal problems. Isabella sipped her latte and wondered when she'd stopped being normal. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was Claire. Miss Monroe, Victor's assistant just sent a memo to the leadership team about the Whitmore changes. He's positioning it as an optimization initiative. I thought you should know. Forward it to me. And Claire? Yes? Find out everything you can about Noah Bennett, discreetly. There was a pause. The analyst from the gala? Yes. May I ask why? No. Isabella hung up before Claire could push further. She knew how this looked. She knew what people would think if they found out the CEO was investigating a mid-level employee for no apparent reason. She didn't care. Something about Noah Bennett had broken through 12 years of carefully constructed armor, and Isabella needed to understand why. The answer came 2 days later on a Wednesday afternoon when Isabella was supposed to be in meetings, but instead found herself driving through a neighborhood on the north side she'd never visited before. Lincoln Elementary School sat on a quiet street lined with old trees and modest houses. The building was brick, probably built in the 50s with a playground that had seen better decades. Isabella parked across the street and checked her watch. 2:45. School let out at 3. This was insane. This was borderline criminal. CEOs didn't stake out elementary schools to catch glimpses of their employees' children. But Isabella stayed. At 2:55, the front doors opened and children began streaming out, loud, chaotic, moving in swarms like schools of fish. Teachers stood by the exits, checking off names on clipboards. Parents gathered on the sidewalk, comparing notes about pickup schedules and after-school activities. Isabella watched them with the same anthropological detachment she'd felt at the gala. These were people with simple concerns, carpools, homework, whether their kid ate lunch, small, manageable problems. Then she saw Noah. He stood slightly apart from the other parents, wearing jeans and a navy blue sweater, hands in his pockets, scanning the crowd with patient focus. He looked different outside the office. Younger, maybe, or just more relaxed, like he'd shed some weight the moment he left Meridian's building. The school doors burst open again, and Emma came running out. Isabella's breath caught. The little girl from the Facebook photo was real, solid, moving through the world with 7-year-old energy. She had Noah's dark hair in 2 messy braids, and she wore a purple backpack that was too big for her small frame. She scanned the crowd, spotted her father, and her whole face lit up like someone had turned on the sun. "Daddy!" She ran toward him, backpack bouncing, and Noah dropped to one knee to catch her. Emma crashed into him with the absolute faith of a child who'd never been let down, wrapping her arms around his neck like he'd been gone for years instead of hours. Noah held her tight, his face buried in her hair, and even from across the street, Isabella could see his shoulders relax. Like he'd been holding tension all day, and this moment, this single moment of holding his daughter, released all of it. "How was school, sunshine?" Noah's voice carried across the street, warm and gentle. "Really good. Mrs. Patterson said my story about the dragon was the best one in class." Emma pulled back, eyes shining. "And we had pizza for lunch, and I traded my fruit snacks to Marcus for his pudding cup, and—" Wait. Noah stood, taking her hand. "You traded away the fruit snacks I packed this morning? Marcus really wanted them." "Emma, we talked about this. You need to eat the lunch I give you." "But I ate the pizza, and the pudding, and some of Sarah's carrots." Noah sighed, but he was smiling. "Some of Sarah's carrots, great. You're going to get scurvy." "What's scurvy?" "Something pirates get when they don't eat fruit." Emma giggled. "I'm not a pirate, Daddy." Could have fooled me with those negotiation skills. They started walking toward the parking lot, Emma chattering about dragons and Marcus, and something involving glitter that made Noah wince. Isabella watched them disappear around the corner, watched Noah open the door of an old Honda Civic, watched him make sure Emma's seatbelt was fastened before getting in himself. She sat in her car for 10 minutes after they'd driven away, hands gripped tight on the steering wheel. Something had shifted inside her chest. Something uncomfortable and unfamiliar and absolutely terrifying. That moment, Emma running into Noah's arms like he was the safest place in the world, had exposed every empty corner of Isabella's life. The penthouse nobody came home to, the office where people feared her instead of loving her, the empire she'd built on the foundation of never needing anyone. She'd spent 12 years convincing herself that success was enough, that power was enough, that she didn't need the messy complications of relationships or vulnerability or love. But watching Noah hold his daughter, watching them walk away together into their small, ordinary life, Isabella finally understood what Jennifer had been trying to tell her. She had everything, and she had nothing at all. Isabella drove back to the office in a daze. The board meeting that morning had been brutal. 2 hours of verbal combat with Victor, who tried to paint her as out of touch with the Whitmore account. She'd destroyed him methodically, presenting data that proved Noah's original timeline was not only accurate but conservative. Victor had left the conference room looking like he'd been hit by a truck. She should have felt triumphant. Instead, she felt hollow. "Ms. Monroe," Claire appeared in her office doorway, tablet in hand. "I have that information you requested." Isabella looked up from her computer, where she'd been staring at the same spreadsheet for 20 minutes without seeing it. "Close the door." Claire did, then sat across from Isabella's desk. She looked nervous. Claire never looked nervous. "What did you find?" Noah Bennett, age 32, married Rachel Chen in 2018. She was a graphic designer, worked for a small agency downtown. They had one daughter, Emma, born in 2019. Claire paused and her voice softened. Rachel was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer in 2020. She died 8 months later. Emma was 18 months old. Isabella felt something cold settle in her stomach. Go on. Noah took a year off work after she died, burned through their savings. When he came back, he specifically looked for positions that offered flexibility and no mandatory overtime. He's turned down 3 promotions at Meridian because they would have required evening work or weekend availability. Claire looked up from her tablet. Every day at 5 o'clock, he leaves to pick up Emma from the after-school program. Every evening is homework, dinner, bath time, bedtime stories. Weekends are completely devoted to his daughter. No dating, no social life, just Emma. My skis. Where did you get all this? His former supervisor was surprisingly chatty. Also, Emma's school has a parent portal. It's not well secured. Claire. You asked for information. I got you information. Claire set down her tablet. May I speak freely? Have I ever stopped you? This is different than your usual background checks. This feels personal. Isabella leaned back in her chair, studying her assistant. Claire had worked for her for 3 years. She was efficient, discreet, and entirely professional. She'd also never questioned Isabella's decisions before. What's your point? My point is that Noah Bennett is a good man raising his daughter alone in impossible circumstances. And if you're interested in him for any reason other than professional, you need to be very careful. Men like that don't play games. They don't have time for games. I'm not interested in him. Claire's expression said she didn't believe that for a second. Then why am I investigating his personal life? Because I need to understand my employees. You have 347 employees. You've never asked me to investigate any of them before. Isabella felt a flash of anger. Are you questioning me? No, ma'am. I'm protecting you. Claire stood, picking up her tablet. Noah Bennett lost his wife 4 years ago. He spent every day since then keeping a promise to her that he'd take care of their daughter. He's not looking for romance. He's not looking for career advancement. He's looking for stability for Emma. If you disrupt that, you'll destroy him. I'm not planning to disrupt anything. Good. Because he doesn't deserve it. Claire moved toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, I think he's exactly the kind of person you need in your life. Just make sure you know what you want before you do anything about it. She left before Isabella could respond. Isabella sat alone in her office, staring at the closed door. Claire's words echoed in her mind. Men like that don't play games. She thought about Noah kneeling in front of his daughter, holding her like she was the most precious thing in the world. She thought about the promise he'd kept every single day for 4 years. She thought about the fact that he'd rebuilt his entire life around being the parent Emma needed. And she thought about herself, the Ice Queen. The brilliant CEO who'd sacrificed everything for success and had nothing to show for it but money and loneliness. What could she possibly offer someone like Noah Bennett? The answer was obvious. Nothing. Isabella pulled up the quarterly reports again and tried to focus on work. But her mind kept drifting back to Lincoln Elementary, to the image of Emma running toward her father with absolute trust and joy. At 6 o'clock, her office was dark except for her desk lamp. Through the window, she could see the city lights coming on, Chicago settling into evening. Somewhere out there, Noah was probably making dinner for his daughter, reading her a story, tucking her in with the same care and devotion he brought to everything else. Isabella's phone rang. Jennifer, please tell me you're not still at the office. I'm still at the office. It's 6 o'clock on a Wednesday. Your point? My point is that you've been weird all week. Missed a Monday, skipped 2 meetings, and according to Claire, you're conducting mysterious background checks on random employees. Isabella closed her eyes. Claire talks too much. Claire is worried about you. So am I. Jennifer paused. This is about that analyst, isn't it? Noah Bennett. It's not about anyone. Bullshit. You've been obsessed with him since the gala. Why? I'm not obsessed. Then what are you? Isabella wanted to hang up, wanted to retreat behind her usual walls and tell Jennifer to mind her own business. But the words that came out instead were honest and raw and terrifying. I don't know. I saw him with his daughter today, and something broke inside me. I've spent 12 years building this empire, Jen. 12 years proving I don't need anyone. And then I watch some analyst pick up his kid from school, and suddenly everything I've built feels empty. The line was quiet for a long moment. Where did you see him with his daughter? Jennifer finally asked. I may have driven past his daughter's school. Jesus, Izzy. I know. You can't do that. You can't stalk employees. I know. And you definitely can't fall for some guy just because he has his priorities straight. I'm not falling for anyone. Then what are you doing? Isabella stared out at the city lights, at the vast darkness beyond them. I'm realizing I've been lying to myself for 12 years. I thought I was strong because I didn't need anyone. But watching Noah with his daughter, I realized I'm not strong. I'm just alone. Oh, honey, Jennifer's voice went soft. You're not alone. You have me. You have people who care about you. But I don't have anyone waiting for me when I come home. I don't have anyone who lights up when I walk in the room. I don't have anyone who needs me for anything other than quarterly profits and strategic decisions. So change that. How? I don't know, but stalking single fathers at elementary schools probably isn't the answer. Despite everything, Isabella smiled. Probably not. Look, I'm not saying Noah Bennett is off limits. I'm saying if you're actually interested in him as a person, not as some symbol of what you're missing, then you need to approach this differently. He's not some business problem you can solve with strategy and execution. I know that. Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're treating him like a research project. Isabella closed her laptop. I don't know how to do this, Jen. I don't know how to be anything other than the CEO. I've forgotten how to just be human. Then maybe it's time to remember. After Jennifer hung up, Isabella sat in her dark office for another hour, thinking about what it meant to be human, to be vulnerable, to want something beyond power and success. She thought about her father, broken at the kitchen table after his partner's betrayal. She'd built her entire life around never being that vulnerable, never giving anyone the power to hurt her. But in avoiding pain, she'd also avoided everything else. Joy, connection, love. The kind of bone-deep certainty that came from being someone's safe place. At 7:30, Isabella finally left the office. Instead of going home, she drove back to the north side, to the neighborhood where Noah lived. She didn't know his exact address, but Claire's research had given her the general area. She found the house by accident, a small bungalow with a neat lawn and a Honda Civic in the driveway. Warm light glowed in the windows. Through the front window, Isabella could see Noah and Emma at the kitchen table, heads bent over what looked like homework. She parked across the street and watched. Noah was patient, pointing at something in Emma's workbook, explaining with gentle gestures. Emma nodded, tried again, and when she got it right, Noah high-fived her with exaggerated enthusiasm that made Emma giggle. It was such a small moment, so ordinary, but Isabella felt it like a knife between her ribs. This was what she'd been missing. Not the grand gestures or impressive achievements, just the quiet, steady warmth of being present with someone you loved. Emma hopped down from her chair and disappeared into another room. Noah stood, stretching, and for a moment his face showed the exhaustion beneath the patience. He ran a hand through his hair, closed his eyes, took a breath. Then Emma came running back with a book, and the exhaustion vanished. Noah scooped her up, carried her to the couch, and started reading. Isabella watched them for 15 minutes, then drove away before the shame could completely overwhelm her. She went home to her empty penthouse, poured herself a whiskey she didn't drink, and stood at the windows until the city lights blurred. Somewhere out there, Noah was tucking his daughter into bed, making promises he'd keep, being the father Emma needed. And Isabella was exactly where she'd always been, alone at the top, surrounded by everything money could buy and nothing that actually mattered. She pulled out her phone and opened Noah's employee file one more time, stared at his photo, at those kind eyes and that uncomfortable half-smile. Then she closed it and made a decision. She couldn't keep doing this, couldn't keep stalking him, researching him, watching him from afar like some kind of creep. It wasn't fair to him, and it wasn't fair to herself. If she wanted to know Noah Bennett, she'd have to do it the right way, even if she had no idea what that meant. The crisis hit on a Thursday morning at 6:45, when Isabella was halfway through her second cup of coffee and reviewing the European expansion proposal. Her phone lit up with a call from Daniel Whitmore himself. Isabella's stomach dropped. Clients didn't call the CEO directly unless something had gone catastrophically wrong. "Mr. Whitmore," she answered, forcing her voice into calm professionalism. "Good morning. Is it?" His voice was cold enough to freeze vodka. "Because I'm looking at a report from my data team that says your integration system has been feeding us incorrect analytics for the past 6 weeks. Isabella's mind went blank, then raced. That's impossible. We ran validation tests. Your validation tests missed a systemic error in the customer segmentation algorithm. We've been making million-dollar decisions based on garbage data, Ms. Monroe. Do you understand what that means? She understood perfectly. It meant Whitmore Industries could sue Meridian into the ground. It meant her reputation would be destroyed. It meant everything she'd built could collapse in a matter of days. I need to investigate this immediately, Isabella said. Can you send me? I'm sending you nothing. I'm pulling my entire account and recommending to my network that nobody touch Meridian with a 10-foot pole. Your company is done. Mr. Whitmore, please, give me 24 hours to identify the problem and present a solution. You had 6 weeks to identify the problem. You failed. We're done here. He hung up. Isabella sat frozen at her desk, phone still pressed to her ear, listening to dead air. The Whitmore account was worth $43 million annually. It was Meridian's flagship client, the one she referenced in every investor presentation, the proof that her company could handle enterprise-level integration at scale. Losing it wouldn't just hurt financially, it would destroy credibility. Other clients would panic. Investors would lose confidence. The board would start asking questions about her leadership. Victor Langford would smell blood in the water. Isabella's hands were shaking. She set down her phone carefully, like it might explode. Then she called Jennifer. Please tell me you already know about Whitmore, Isabella said when Jennifer picked up. I'm looking at the error report right now. It's bad, Izzy. Really bad. How did we miss this? I don't know. The integration team ran standard validation protocols. Everything passed. But Whitmore's internal audit found a recursive loop in the segmentation query that's been doubling certain customer categories and zeroing out others. Jennifer's voice was tight with stress. Their entire Q3 strategy was based on our analytics. If those analytics were wrong, they'll sue us for damages. At minimum. At worst, they'll go public with this and tank our reputation. Isabella stood and started pacing. Her office suddenly felt too small, the walls pressing in. Call an emergency leadership meeting. Everyone in the conference room in 30 minutes. Victor's going to have a field day with this. Let him try. I'll deal with Victor. You focus on figuring out how this happened. Isabella hung up and pressed her forehead against the cold glass of her window. The city stretched out below her, indifferent to her panic. Millions of people going about their lives, unaware that her empire was crumbling. She thought about her father, broken at the kitchen table, history repeating itself. No. She wouldn't let that happen. She'd built Meridian from nothing, and she'd fix this problem the same way she'd fixed every other crisis, with intelligence, ruthlessness, and absolute refusal to quit. The leadership meeting was a disaster. Isabella walked into the conference room to find her entire executive team already assembled, looking like they'd been called to a funeral. Victor sat at the far end of the table, his expression carefully neutral, but Isabella could see the calculation in his eyes. All right, she said, taking her seat at the head of the table. Everyone's seen the Whitmore report. I want solutions, not excuses. Jennifer, what do we know? Jennifer pulled up a presentation on the screen. The error originated in the custom segmentation module we built specifically for Whitmore. It's a logic flaw in the SQL query structure. Basically, certain customer types were being counted multiple times while others weren't being counted at all. How did it pass validation? This from Marcus Chen, head of quality assurance, who looked like he wanted to crawl under the table. The validation tests were designed to catch syntax errors and performance issues, not logic flaws in the business rules, Jennifer said. This is a conceptual error, not a technical one. Victor leaned forward. So what you're saying is that our entire quality assurance process is fundamentally broken. What I'm saying is that we missed something, Jennifer shot back. It happens. It happens? Victor's voice dripped with contempt. We just lost our biggest client because it happens? We haven't lost them yet, Isabella said coldly. We have 24 hours to fix this and present a solution. Whitmore already pulled the account. I got the email this morning. Then we get it back. Victor laughed, and it wasn't a pleasant sound. With all due respect, Miss Monroe, I think it's time we faced reality. This company has grown too fast under your leadership. We've sacrificed quality for expansion, and now it's catching up with us. The room went silent. Everyone stared at Victor like he'd just pulled a gun. Isabella felt white-hot rage flood through her veins, but her voice came out ice-cold. Are you suggesting this is my fault, Victor? I'm suggesting that maybe it's time for some changes in how this company operates. The board has been concerned about sustainability for months. This just proves they were right to be worried. The board, Isabella said slowly, answers to me. For now. The implication hung in the air like poison gas. Marcus cleared his throat nervously. Maybe we should focus on solving the problem instead of assigning blame. Agreed, Jennifer said quickly. I've already got my team working on a fix for the segmentation module. If we can patch it and provide Whitmore with corrected data by tomorrow morning, heck it. That's not good enough, Victor interrupted. We need to completely rebuild the quality assurance process. Implement new protocols. Bring in an outside auditor. Show Whitmore we're taking this seriously. That'll take weeks, Jennifer said. Whitmore wants answers now. Then maybe we should have thought about that before we deployed broken code. Isabella had heard enough. She stood, placing both hands flat on the conference table, and fixed Victor with a stare that had made venture capitalists reconsider their life choices. Here's what's going to happen, she said quietly. Jennifer's team will fix the segmentation module. Marcus, you'll prepare a detailed report on how the error occurred and what we're doing to prevent it happening again. Sarah, you'll draft a proposal for enhanced validation protocols. I will personally call Whitmore and negotiate our way back into his good graces. And Victor, you will shut your mouth and stay out of my way. Are we clear? Victor's jaw tightened. The board, I'll handle the board. You just do your actual job, which is strategic development, not undermining me in front of my leadership team. She could see the hatred flash across his face, quickly masked by professional courtesy. Of course, Ms. Monroe. Whatever you think is best. I know what's best. That's why I'm the CEO. Isabella looked around the room. Everyone else, get to work. I want updates every 2 hours. We fix this today. The team filed out quickly, leaving Isabella alone with Jennifer. That was brutal, Jennifer said. That was necessary. Victor's been waiting for an opportunity like this. I had to remind him who's in charge. He's going to go straight to the board. Let him. I'll deal with Martin Reeves and his drinking buddies later. Isabella rubbed her eyes. She'd been awake for 22 hours and could feel exhaustion creeping in. Can your team actually fix this by tomorrow? Honestly, I don't know. The logic flaw is complex. It might take days to properly debug and test. We don't have days. I know. Isabella pulled out her phone and scrolled through her contacts until she found Whitmore's number. Her finger hovered over the call button. One conversation. That's all it would take to either save her company or watch it die. Wait, Jennifer said. Before you call him, there's something you should know. What? Noah Bennett is the one who found the error. Isabella's head snapped up. What? Whitmore's team identified the problem, but when I pulled our internal logs, I found a flag Noah raised 3 days ago. He noticed some anomalies in the output data and ran a diagnostic. He found the logic flaw before Whitmore did. Then why didn't he report it? He did. He sent an email to his supervisor on Monday. It got buried in someone's inbox. Isabella felt something crack inside her chest. While she'd been stalking Noah at his daughter's school, obsessing over his personal life like some kind of creep, he'd been quietly doing his job and finding the exact error that was now threatening to destroy her company. Get him up here, Isabella said. Now. Izzy? Now, Jennifer. 10 minutes later, Noah Bennett walked into her office looking confused and slightly worried. He wore khakis and a button-down shirt that had seen better days, and his wire-rimmed glasses were slightly crooked. Miss Monroe, he said carefully. You wanted to see me? Isabella gestured to the chair across from her desk. Sit down, Mr. Bennett. He sat, hands folded in his lap, watching her with those calm, steady eyes. If he was nervous about being summoned to the CEO's office during a company-wide crisis, he didn't show it. I understand you found an error in the Whitmore integration system, Isabella said. Yes, ma'am. I sent a report to my supervisor on Monday. Why didn't you escalate it? Noah blinked. I'm not authorized to escalate directly to leadership. That's not how the chain of command works. The chain of command is about to cost this company its biggest client. I'm sorry. I didn't realize it was that urgent. The anomaly seemed significant, but I thought my supervisor would determine priority level. Isabella studied him across the desk. He wasn't making excuses. Wasn't trying to deflect blame or play politics. He was just stating facts with the same honest directness he'd shown at the gala. "Can you fix it?" she asked. "The segmentation module?" "Yes. I've already written a corrected version of the query logic. I just need access to the production environment to implement and test it." "How long?" "If I can work without interruption, maybe 6 hours, 8 to be safe." "You have 4. Noah's eyebrows went up slightly. "That's pushing it. Whitmore wants answers by tomorrow morning. I need this fixed today so I can call him tonight with a solution." "Miss Monroe, I understand the urgency, but rushing the testing phase could introduce new errors. It's better to—" "I'm not asking for your opinion on timeline, Mr. Bennett. I'm telling you what needs to happen." Something shifted in Noah's expression. Not anger exactly, just a quiet firmness that Isabella hadn't seen before. "With respect, ma'am, I can't compromise the quality of my work just to meet an arbitrary deadline. If you want this done right, it takes the time it takes." Isabella felt her temper flare. "Do you understand what's at stake here? This company could lose everything because of this error." "I understand, but fixing it wrong won't help. It'll just create more problems down the line." They stared at each other across the desk. Isabella was used to employees backing down when she pushed. Noah just sat there, calm and immovable as a stone. "Fine," she said finally. 6 hours. But I need you to work in here where I can monitor progress. I work better in my own space." That wasn't a request. Noah's jaw tightened slightly, but he nodded. "Yes, ma'am." Isabella called Claire and had her set up a workstation in the corner of her office. Within 20 minutes, Noah was settled in with 2 monitors, a laptop, and a cup of coffee that had probably gone cold an hour ago. He worked in complete silence, his fingers moving across the keyboard with focused precision. Isabella tried to focus on her own work, damage control emails, board member calls, preparing her pitch to Whitmore, but she kept getting distracted by the sight of Noah bent over his laptop, completely absorbed in solving the problem she'd created. Around 2 in the afternoon, Isabella's assistant brought lunch. Isabella had ordered extra, figuring Noah would need to eat. "Mr. Bennett," she said. "Food." Noah looked up, blinking like someone coming out of a trance. "What time is it?" 2:15. "Shit." He pulled out his phone and quickly typed something. "I need to make a call." "You need to keep working. It'll take 2 minutes. It's important." Before Isabella could argue, Noah stepped into the hallway. She could hear his voice through the door, warm and apologetic. "Hey, Sunshine, I know, I'm sorry. Something came up at work. I don't know yet. Maybe late. No, Mrs. Patterson said she can stay with you until I get there. I know you don't like that, but Daddy doesn't have a choice right now. Emma, please don't cry. I'll be home as soon as I can. I promise. I love you too, Sunshine." He came back into the office looking tired and guilty. "Your daughter?" Isabella asked, even though she already knew the answer. "Yeah, she's upset I'm not picking her up from school." "How often does that happen?" "Never." Noah sat back down at his workstation. "I've picked her up every single day for 4 years. She doesn't understand why today's different." Isabella felt something uncomfortable twist in her chest. "I'm sorry." Noah looked at her, surprised. "It's not your fault." "Well, technically, it is since you're making me work late, but I understand why. The company needs this fixed. Still, I know you have priorities outside of work." "Everyone has priorities outside of work, Ms. Monroe. Most people just don't talk about them." He turned back to his laptop, effectively ending the conversation. Isabella watched him work for another few minutes, then forced herself to focus on her own crisis management. She drafted emails to key clients, reassuring them about Meridian's quality standards. She prepared talking points for the board meeting Victor was definitely organizing. She reviewed the proposal Sarah had sent for enhanced validation protocols, but part of her mind kept returning to the sound of Noah's voice in the hallway. The guilt. The love. The fact that he'd kept a promise to his daughter every single day for 4 years, and Isabella had just forced him to break it. At 4:30, Noah stood up and stretched. "I've got the fix implemented. Starting the validation testing now." "How's it looking?" "Good so far. The logic error is corrected and the preliminary tests are clean. I need another hour for comprehensive validation, then we can run it against Whitmore's actual dataset to verify the corrections." Isabella nodded. "Do it." She watched him work through the testing phase with meticulous care, checking and rechecking every output, running scenario after scenario. This wasn't someone cutting corners to meet a deadline. This was someone who took pride in doing things right. At 5:30, Noah's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and Isabella saw his expression tighten. Problem? She asked. Emma's aftercare closes at 6. If I'm not there by then, they charge late fees and I get written up. How many write-ups before it becomes an issue? 3, and they kick her out of the program. I'm already at 2 from last year when I had the flu. Isabella felt the weight of that settling over her. How much longer do you need? 30 minutes, maybe 45. Can someone else pick her up? There's no one else. It's just me. Just me. 2 words that contained an entire universe of isolation and responsibility. Isabella made a decision she'd probably regret. Give me the address. Noah looked up, confused. What? Your daughter's school. Give me the address. I'll pick her up. Miss Monroe, I can't ask you to... You're not asking. I'm offering. You need to finish this work, and your daughter needs to be picked up. I can solve one of those problems. You're the CEO of a billion-dollar company. And right now, the best use of my time is making sure you can finish fixing the error that's threatening that company. Isabella grabbed her coat. Address. Now. Noah rattled off the address of Lincoln Elementary, the same school Isabella had stalked just days ago. The irony wasn't lost on her. She's in the aftercare room. Mrs. Patterson runs it. Tell her I called ahead. Emma knows not to go with strangers, so I'll text her a photo of you. You have a photo of me? Company directory. Right, of course. Isabella headed for the elevator, her heart pounding in a way that had nothing to do with the Whitmore crisis. She was about to pick up the daughter of an employee she'd been obsessing over for 2 weeks. This was insane. This was inappropriate. This was probably going to end badly. But she'd made the offer, and Isabella Monroe didn't back down. The drive to Lincoln Elementary took 20 minutes in rush hour traffic. Isabella parked in the loading zone and walked into the building, feeling absurdly out of place in her designer suit and heels. The aftercare room was at the end of a long hallway decorated with children's artwork. Isabella could hear laughter and shouting through the door. She knocked, and a woman in her 50s opened it. Mrs. Patterson, I'm Isabella Monroe. Noah Bennett called ahead. Wait. Oh, yes. Emma's daddy said you'd be coming. Mrs. Patterson smiled warmly. Emma, your ride's here. A small figure detached from a group playing with blocks and walked over slowly. Emma Bennett looked exactly like her photos. Dark curls, serious eyes, wearing a purple dress with a grape juice stain on the front. She studied Isabella with the intense scrutiny only 7-year-olds could muster. You're not my daddy, Emma said. No, I'm not. I'm Isabella. Your dad's stuck at work, so he asked me to come get you. Why is he stuck? He's fixing something important. Emma's eyes narrowed. Did you break it? Isabella felt a surprised laugh escape. Sort of. Yes. You should be more careful. You're absolutely right. Emma considered this, then apparently decided Isabella was acceptable. She grabbed her backpack and took Isabella's hand with the casual trust of a child who'd been taught the world was safe. Okay, let's go. The drive back to Meridian's headquarters was surreal. Emma sat in the back seat. Isabella had stopped at a drugstore and bought an emergency booster seat, much to the cashier's amusement, chattering about her day with the same energy Noah had described at school pickup. And then Marcus said his dad could beat up my dad. But that's stupid because my dad is the best dad in the world, and he can do anything. Can your dad beat up my dad? My dad's dead, Isabella said, then immediately regretted it. That was an appropriate conversation for a 7-year-old, but Emma just nodded seriously. My mom's dead too. It's sad. Yeah, it is. Daddy says she's watching over us, but I don't really remember her. I was too little. Isabella's throat tightened. I'm sorry. It's okay. Daddy's really good at being 2 parents. He does my hair and everything, even though he's not very good at braids yet. He seems like a great dad. He's the best. Emma kicked her feet against the seat. Are you his boss? Sort of. Are you nice to him? Isabella thought about the past 6 hours, about forcing Noah to break his promise to his daughter. I'm trying to be. Good, because if you're mean to him, I'll tell Mrs. Patterson, and she's really scary when she's mad. Despite everything, Isabella smiled. I'll keep that in mind. They arrived at Meridian's building, and Isabella led Emma through the lobby to the executive elevator. The security guard did a double take, seeing the CEO holding hands with a small child, but wisely said nothing. In the elevator, Emma looked up at Isabella with those serious eyes. "Is my daddy in trouble?" "No, honey. He's helping me fix something. He's actually the hero today." "He's always the hero," Emma said, matter-of-factly. "That's what heroes do." When Isabella opened her office door, Noah looked up from his laptop and his whole face transformed. "Emma!" Emma dropped Isabella's hand and ran to her father. Noah caught her and lifted her up, holding her tight, and Isabella saw his eyes squeezed shut with relief. "I'm sorry, sunshine," he murmured into her hair. "I'm so sorry." "It's okay, Daddy. Isabella came and got me. She bought me a booster seat and everything." Noah looked at Isabella over his daughter's head, and the gratitude in his expression made Isabella's chest ache. "Thank you," he said quietly. "How's the validation testing?" Isabella asked, because she didn't know how to respond to genuine gratitude. "Finished. Clean results across the board. I ran it against Whitmore's dataset. The corrected analytics show completely different customer segmentation patterns. This is going to change all their strategic assumptions. But it's accurate now?" "It's accurate now." Isabella felt something loosen in her chest. "Then we call Whitmore tonight and show him we fixed it." Noah set Emma down and started packing up his workstation. "I can prepare a presentation for you." "No, we prepare it together." Isabella looked at Emma. "Do you have homework?" Emma nodded seriously. "Multiplication tables?" "Then you can work on that while your dad and I fix the grown-up problem. Deal?" "Deal." For the next 2 hours, Isabella and Noah worked side by side, building a presentation that would save Meridian's biggest account. Emma sat at Claire's desk, diligently working through her math homework and occasionally asking questions about what 7 times 8 equaled. It was the strangest evening Isabella had spent in 12 years of running a company. Around 8 o'clock, they had a complete presentation, corrected data, explanation of the error, implementation of new validation protocols, and a proposal for quarterly audits to prevent future issues. Noah leaned back in his chair, exhausted. That should do it. Isabella studied the final slide. It was good. Better than good. It was exactly what Whitmore needed to see to restore confidence in Meridian. "I'll call him now," she said. "Wait!" Noah pulled out his phone. "Emma needs dinner. There's a pizza place down the street." "Claire!" Isabella called out. Her assistant appeared instantly. "Order pizza, whatever Emma wants, and get something for the 3 of us." "3?" Claire's eyebrows went up slightly. "Yes, 3. Claire disappeared, and Isabella pulled up Whitmore's number. Her hand hovered over the call button for just a moment, then she dialed. Whitmore answered on the second ring, his voice still cold. "Miss Monroe, I hope this call is very brief." "Mr. Whitmore, I'm calling to present the solution to the segmentation error. I have my senior analyst on the line with me, Noah Bennett, the one who actually identified the flaw in the first place." There was a pause. "I'm listening." For the next 30 minutes, Isabella and Noah tag-teamed the presentation. Isabella handled the strategic reassurance and the validation protocol changes. Noah walked through the technical details of the error and the fix with clear, precise language that even a non-technical person could understand. When they finished, there was a long silence. "Send me the corrected dataset," Whitmore finally said. "I'll have my team validate it against our records." "Of course. And Miss Monroe, if this happens again, if there's even a hint of another quality issue, we're done. Permanently." "Understood. But this was impressive work. Fast, thorough, and honest about what went wrong. That matters." Isabella felt relief flood through her. "Thank you, Mr. Whitmore." "Don't thank me yet. Thank your analyst. He just saved your company." The line went dead. Isabella set down her phone and looked at Noah, who was watching her with tired but calm eyes. "We did it," she said. "You did it. I just fixed the code." "You did a hell of a lot more than that." Before Noah could respond, the pizza arrived. Emma's face lit up, and for the next hour the 3 of them sat in Isabella's office eating pizza and watching Emma draw pictures of what she claimed was a dragon, but looked more like a purple blob with teeth. It was the most normal evening Isabella had spent in years, and she couldn't remember the last time she'd felt this content. At 9:30, Emma fell asleep on Isabella's leather couch, curled up with her purple backpack as a pillow and her half-finished dragon drawing clutched in one small hand. Noah stood looking down at his daughter, his face soft with exhaustion and love. I should get her home. Let her sleep another few minutes, Isabella said quietly. She's comfortable. She's drooling on your $3,000 couch. It's just a couch. Noah gave her a look that said he knew exactly how much that couch cost, and how little Isabella actually cared about drool. But he sat back down at the workstation anyway, pulling up the corrected data files to prepare them for Whitmore's team. Isabella watched him work. This quiet man who'd just saved her company and was now making sure every detail was perfect. Because that's what he did. No fanfare, no demands for recognition, just steady, reliable competence. Can I ask you something? Isabella said. Noah looked up. Sure. Why do you stay at Meridian? You could make more money elsewhere. Get a position with better hours, better benefits. Why stay in a job where you've turned down 3 promotions? Noah was quiet for a moment, his eyes flicking to Emma sleeping on the couch. Stability. Meridian has good health insurance, and Emma's got some medical expenses from when she was younger. The hours are predictable, mostly, and I don't need to be important. I just need to be employed. That's it? Just insurance and predictability? That's everything when you have a kid depending on you. Noah closed his laptop. Before Rachel died, I wanted all the things everyone wants. Corner office, VP title, 6-figure salary. But then I was sitting in a hospital room watching my wife die, and Emma was crying in the hallway because she didn't understand why mommy was sick, and I realized none of that other stuff mattered. The only thing that mattered was being there for my daughter. Isabella felt something crack inside her chest. So you just gave up on ambition? I didn't give up on ambition. I redirected it. My ambition is to raise a happy, healthy kid who knows she's loved. Everything else is just details. Most people don't see it that way. Most people don't have to choose between a board meeting and a school play. Noah's voice was gentle, not accusatory. You asked me at the gala why I left early. This is why. Because Emma is 7 years old once. If I miss it chasing a promotion, I can't get it back. Isabella looked at Emma, small and peaceful on the couch, completely trusting that her father would take care of her. She's lucky to have you. I'm lucky to have her. Noah stood and carefully scooped Emma into his arms. She stirred slightly but didn't wake, just pressed her face against his shoulder. Thank you for picking her up today. I know that was above and beyond. It was the least I could do after making you work late. Still, you didn't have to. Noah adjusted Emma's weight, settling her more comfortably. And thank you for the pizza. She'll be talking about eating dinner in the CEO's office for weeks. She's a sweet kid. She is. Noah started toward the door, then paused. Miss Monroe? Isabella, please. After today, I think we can drop the formality. Isabella. He said her name carefully, like he was testing its weight. What you did tonight, not just for me, but for the company, that took guts. A lot of CEOs would have thrown someone under the bus to save face. You didn't do that. I don't sacrifice good people to protect my ego. I noticed. Noah shifted Emma again. For what it's worth, I think you're a better leader than you give yourself credit for. He left before Isabella could respond, carrying his sleeping daughter toward the elevator. Isabella stood alone in her office, looking at the empty space where they'd been, and felt the silence settle around her like a physical weight. The crisis was over. Whitmore would get his corrected data. The company was safe. She'd won. So why did she feel like she'd just lost something important? The next morning, Isabella arrived at the office at 7 to find Victor Langford waiting outside her door. We need to talk, he said without preamble. Isabella unlocked her office and walked in, not bothering to invite him. He followed anyway. Make it quick, Victor. I have a conference call with Whitmore at 8. I heard you got the account back. Victor's tone suggested he'd rather eat glass than admit this. Congratulations. Was that what you came to say? No. Victor closed the door behind him. I came to give you a warning. The board is concerned about your judgment. Isabella set down her bag and turned to face him. My judgment saved us $43 million yesterday. Your judgment nearly lost us $43 million in the first place. That error should never have made it to production. And it wouldn't have if someone had actually read Noah Bennett's email instead of letting it rot in their inbox. That someone reports to you. Everything reports to you. That's how leadership works. You take responsibility for the failures. Isabella studied Victor across her desk. He was dressed in an expensive suit, perfectly tailored, his hair styled like he'd just stepped out of a salon. Everything about him was calculated to project power and competence, but his eyes were desperate. "What do you want, Victor?" "I want you to step down gracefully before the board forces you out." Isabella actually laughed. "You think the board is going to force me out after I just saved our biggest client? I think the board is tired of your cowboy leadership style, the risk-taking, the lack of oversight, the way you make decisions based on instinct instead of data." Victor leaned forward, hands on her desk. "Yesterday was a wake-up call. We can't keep operating like this." "We operate like this because it works. Meridian has grown 18% under my leadership. Our stock price has tripled. We've expanded into 6 new markets. And we nearly destroyed it all because you were too busy building an empire to notice a critical quality control failure." The words hit harder than Isabella expected, because there was truth in them. She had been distracted, not by empire building, but by obsessing over a quiet analyst and his daughter, by questioning everything she'd built, by suddenly wondering if success was enough. "Get out of my office, Victor. I'm trying to help you. If you step down now, you can leave with your reputation intact. Stay, and the board will tear you apart." "The board answers to me. For now." Victor straightened. "But I've been talking to Martin Reeves and the other members. They're ready for new leadership, leadership that prioritizes stability over growth, process over instinct. Leadership like you? Leadership like someone who actually understands how to run a mature company instead of treating it like a startup." Isabella walked around her desk until she was standing directly in front of Victor, close enough to see the small vein pulsing in his temple. "Let me be very clear," she said softly. "I built this company from nothing. I know every line of code, every client relationship, every strategic decision that got us here. You're a hired gun who got lucky with a few good ideas. If you think the board is going to replace me with you, you're delusional. We'll see." Victor smiled, and it was ugly. "Oh, and Isabella, I heard you spent yesterday evening eating pizza with Noah Bennett and his daughter, in your office, alone. That's an interesting choice." Isabella's blood went cold. "What are you implying?" "I'm not implying anything. I'm just observing that the CEO showing special treatment to a mid-level analyst could raise questions about favoritism, especially if that analyst suddenly starts getting promotions or special assignments. Noah Bennett earned every bit of consideration he gets by saving this company's ass. I'm sure that's how you see it. I'm just saying, appearances matter. And the appearance of the Ice Queen having a cozy dinner with a single-father employee while his daughter colors pictures, that's going to make people talk." "Let them talk." "Oh, they will, especially when I mention it to the board." Victor headed for the door, then paused. "You know what your problem is, Isabella? You think you're untouchable, but everyone falls eventually. I'm just making sure I'm in position when you do." He left, and Isabella stood frozen in her office, rage and fear warring in her chest. Victor was right about one thing. Appearances mattered. And if he spun the story correctly, her evening with Noah could look improper. Never mind that Emma had been there the whole time. Never mind that they'd been fixing a company crisis. Victor could twist it into something inappropriate, and the board might listen. She pulled out her phone and called Jennifer. "Tell me you're not already at the office," Jennifer said by way of greeting. "I need you to do something for me, quietly." This sounds ominous. Victor's making a move. He's been talking to board members trying to undermine me. I need to know who's with him and who's still loyal. Jennifer was quiet for a moment. "How bad is it?" "Bad enough that he just threatened to spread rumors about me and Noah Bennett." "Oh shit. The pizza dinner?" "Someone saw. Or Claire talked. I don't know, but Victor knows. And he's planning to use it. Izzy, please tell me there's nothing actually inappropriate going on." "There's nothing inappropriate. Emma was there the whole time. We were working." "Then what's the problem?" "The problem is that perception doesn't care about truth. If Victor convinces the board I'm playing favorites with an analyst I'm personally involved with, they'll have grounds to question my judgment." "Are you personally involved?" Isabella didn't answer. "Izzy, are you falling for this guy?" "I don't know what I am doing. I just know that everything felt different yesterday. Having Emma and Noah in my office, Fixing the crisis together, eating pizza like a normal person instead of the ice queen. It was the first time in years I felt like something other than a CEO. That's not a bad thing. It is if it costs me everything I've built. Jennifer sighed. I'll talk to the board members I trust, figure out who's wavering. But Izzy, you need to be careful. If there's even a hint of impropriety, there isn't. I believe you. I'm just saying, Victor's smart. He knows how to manipulate perception. And right now you're vulnerable. Isabella hung up and stood at her window, looking out at the city. Somewhere down there, Noah was probably dropping Emma off at school, making her laugh with some terrible dad joke, being the steady, reliable presence his daughter needed. And Isabella was standing in her glass tower, fighting to protect an empire that suddenly felt hollow. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Noah. Got your number from the company directory. Just wanted to say thank you again for yesterday. Emma won't stop talking about the nice lady with the fancy office. If you ever need someone to fix broken code or provide questionable parenting advice, I'm around. Despite everything, Isabella smiled. She typed back, the code fixing I'll definitely take you up on. The parenting advice might be above my pay grade. His response came quickly. That's what everyone thinks until they're trying to explain why we can't have ice cream for breakfast. Then it's survival mode. Did you win the ice cream battle this morning? We compromised on waffles with strawberries. I'm calling it a draw. Isabella found herself grinning at her phone like a teenager, which was absurd. She was the CEO of a billion-dollar company in the middle of a political crisis, and she was texting about breakfast negotiations with a 7-year-old. Another text from Noah. Seriously though, thank you, not just for yesterday, but for treating Emma like she mattered. Most people just see her as an inconvenience. Isabella's throat tightened. She typed, she's not an inconvenience. She's a remarkable kid. She is. Though don't tell her that. She's already too confident for her own good. I'll keep it between us. There was a pause, then, I should let you get back to running the world. But if you want to grab coffee sometime and talk about something other than data analytics, I'd like that. Isabella stared at the message for a full minute. This was dangerous. This was exactly what Victor could use against her. A personal relationship with an employee, especially now when her judgment was already being questioned. The smart move was to politely decline. Keep things professional. Maintain the walls. She typed, I'd like that too. Thursday after work? I have to pick up Emma at 5. Saturday morning then? There's a place called Grounded on the north side. I know it. Emma loves their hot chocolate. 10 o'clock? Perfect. Isabella set down her phone and immediately second-guessed everything. This wasn't just dangerous. This was potentially career-ending. If anyone found out she was meeting Noah for coffee, Victor would have ammunition to paint her as emotionally compromised. But the thought of Saturday morning, of sitting in a coffee shop with Noah and Emma like a normal person instead of the ice queen, made her feel something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. The week crawled by with agonizing slowness. Whitmore's team validated the corrected data and grudgingly confirmed that Meridian had fixed the issue. The account was officially restored, though Whitmore made it clear they were on permanent probation. Jennifer reported back that 3 board members were wavering: Martin Reeves, Sarah Goldstein, and David Park. Victor had been working them hard, emphasizing Isabella's erratic judgment and lack of oversight. Isabella countered by scheduling individual meetings with each of them, presenting detailed reports on Meridian's growth, the Whitmore crisis resolution, and her plans for enhanced quality control. She was charming when she needed to be, ruthless when charm didn't work, and by Friday afternoon she'd shored up enough support to feel reasonably secure. But Victor wasn't done. On Friday evening, Isabella was packing up to leave when Claire appeared in her doorway looking nervous. Miss Monroe, there's something you should see. Claire handed over her tablet. On the screen was an internal memo, scheduled to be sent Monday morning to the entire leadership team and board of directors. The subject line read, Concerns regarding executive conduct and conflict of interest. Isabella's stomach dropped as she read Victor's carefully worded memo. It didn't directly accuse her of anything, but it raised questions about unusual personnel decisions and potential favoritism regarding Noah Bennett. It mentioned the pizza dinner, the fact that Noah had worked directly with Isabella on the Whitmore fix instead of through proper channels, and suggested that emotional attachments might be clouding the CEO's judgment. It was masterfully done, Nothing explicitly accusatory, just enough innuendo to make the board uncomfortable. Can we stop it from being sent? Isabella asked. It's scheduled through Victor's personal account. I can't access it. Isabella's hands clenched around the tablet. Get me a meeting with Victor, now. He already left for the day. Then get me his home address. Claire's eyes widened. Ms. Monroe. Address, Claire. Now. 20 minutes later, Isabella was standing outside Victor's townhouse in Lincoln Park, her finger pressed hard against his doorbell. Victor opened the door in casual clothes, a glass of wine in his hand, his expression shifting from surprise to smug satisfaction. Isabella, what a pleasant surprise. We need to talk. I'm off the clock, and I have dinner plans. Cancel them. Isabella pushed past him into the townhouse. It was decorated like a showroom. Expensive, tasteful, completely impersonal. You're not sending that memo. I have no idea what you're talking about. Don't play stupid, Victor. The memo about Noah Bennett, about supposed conflicts of interest. You're not sending it. Victor closed the door and took a slow sip of his wine. Actually, I am. The board deserves to know when their CEO is making decisions based on personal feelings instead of business logic. I picked up an employee's daughter from school because he was fixing a crisis that saved the company. There's nothing inappropriate about that. You had dinner with them, alone, in your office. His 7-year-old daughter was there the entire time. And yet, you're meeting him for coffee tomorrow morning at Grounded, 10 o'clock. Isabella's blood went cold. How do you know that? I make it my business to know things. Victor set down his wine glass. Here's how this works. You step down, announce you're taking a sabbatical for personal reasons, and I take over as interim CEO. You get to leave with some dignity, and I don't send the memo. And if I refuse, then Monday morning, the board gets a detailed report raising serious questions about your judgment, your emotional stability, and your ability to lead this company. They'll start an investigation. They'll interview Noah Bennett. They'll dig into every decision you've made in the past month. And even if they don't find anything technically improper, the damage will be done. Your authority will be destroyed. Isabella felt rage burning through her veins. You son of a bitch! I'm a realist. You've been slipping for weeks, distracted, making mistakes, getting emotionally involved with employees. It's only a matter of time before you crash this company into the ground. I'm just speeding up the inevitable. Noah Bennett is the best analyst we have. He saved the Whitmore account. I don't care about Noah Bennett. I care about the fact that you're falling apart and you're too proud to admit it. Victor stepped closer. You know what I think? I think you're lonely. I think you've spent so long being the Ice Queen that you forgot how to be human, and now you're latching onto the first person who showed you kindness. It's pathetic. The word hit Isabella like a slap, because it was true. She had been lonely. She had latched onto Noah, not just because he was kind, but because he represented everything she'd sacrificed. Connection, family, a life that meant something beyond quarterly earnings. But that didn't give Victor the right to destroy her. You want this company? Isabella said quietly. Fine, take it, but not like this. Victor raised an eyebrow. What are you proposing? Give me 3 months. I'll step down at the end of Q4 after the European expansion is complete. I'll recommend you to the board as my successor. Clean transition, no scandal, no investigations. And in return, you delete that memo. You stop spreading rumors about Noah Bennett, and you give me these 3 months to finish what I started. Victor considered this, swirling his wine. How do I know you won't change your mind? You don't. You'll just have to trust me. Trust the Ice Queen? That's rich. Do we have a deal or not? Victor studied her for a long moment, and Isabella could see him calculating odds, weighing options. Finally, he nodded. 3 months. But if you try to back out, that memo goes out along with everything else I've been collecting. And Isabella? Stay away from Noah Bennett. If I see you with him again, the deal's off. Isabella felt something shatter inside her chest, but she kept her face perfectly neutral, perfectly cold. Understood. She left Victor's townhouse and sat in her car for 10 minutes, hands shaking on the steering wheel. She'd just agreed to give up everything she'd built. The company, the empire. Her entire identity as the brilliant CEO who needed no one. And the worst part was the relief. Because somewhere beneath the rage and the fear and the sense of failure, Isabella felt something that might have been freedom. She pulled out her phone and looked at Noah's last text message, the one about coffee on Saturday morning. She should cancel, should end this before it started, before she hurt him, before she complicated his life any more than she already had. Instead, she typed, "Still on for tomorrow?" His response came quickly. "Absolutely. Emma's very excited. She's planning to show you her latest dragon drawings." "Can't wait." Isabella set down her phone and started driving, not toward her penthouse, toward the north side, toward the neighborhood where Noah lived, toward the small bungalow with the warm lights and the life she'd never let herself want. She parked across the street and watched through the window as Noah helped Emma with something at the kitchen table, their heads bent together, his hand gentle on her shoulder. This was what she was giving up. Not just the company, not just the power, but the possibility of this, of being someone who mattered to people instead of shareholders. 3 months. That's all she had left. 3 months to figure out who Isabella Monroe was when she wasn't the Ice Queen. 3 months to decide if she had the courage to choose something other than success. 3 months to see if maybe, just maybe, she could have what Noah had found after losing everything. A life that meant something beyond the empire. She sat in her car until the lights in Noah's house went dark, then drove home to her empty penthouse and tried not to think about the choice she'd just made. Isabella didn't sleep that night. She sat at her window watching the city lights blur and refocus, thinking about the deal she'd made with Victor, the empire she'd agreed to surrender, and the coffee date she should cancel but couldn't bring herself to. At 5 in the morning, she gave up on sleep entirely and went for a run along the lake. The October air was sharp and cold, the kind that burned your lungs and cleared your head. She ran until her legs screamed and her chest ached, but it didn't help. Nothing helped. By 9:30, she was standing outside Grounded Coffee, her stomach twisted in knots that had nothing to do with caffeine. This was a mistake. She should turn around, text Noah some excuse about work emergencies, and put distance between them before Victor found out and destroyed the fragile deal she'd made. But then she saw them through the window, Noah and Emma at a corner table, Emma coloring furiously while Noah read something on his phone. Emma looked up, saw Isabella, and her whole face lit up. Isabella's feet carried her inside before her brain could stop them. "Isabella?" Emma bounced in her seat. "You came. Daddy said you might be too busy, but I knew you'd come because you promised, and promises are important." "They are," Isabella said, sliding into the chair across from them. "Sorry I'm a few minutes late." "You're not late," Noah said, and his smile was warm and genuine and made Isabella's chest ache. "We were early." Emma was excited. "I brought my dragon drawings." Emma pushed a folder across the table. "This one's named Sparkles, and she breathes fire but only at bad guys. And this one's Gerald. And he's actually nice, but everyone thinks he's scary because he's big." Isabella paged through the drawings. A riot of purple and green and orange. Dragons with improbable anatomy and expressions that ranged from fierce to dopey. They were terrible and wonderful. "These are amazing," Isabella said honestly. "That's what Daddy says, but I think he has to because he's my dad." Emma looked at Isabella seriously. "Do you really think they're good, or are you just being nice?" "I really think they're good. Gerald especially. He looks like he's trying very hard to be scary, but isn't quite pulling it off." Emma giggled. "That's exactly what I was going for." Noah stood. "I'm getting coffee. What do you want?" "Just a latte." Emma wants hot chocolate with extra marshmallows, which she will absolutely spill on herself. Noah looked at his daughter with fond exasperation. "Try not to destroy Isabella's clothes while I'm gone." He headed for the counter, and Emma immediately scooted her chair closer to Isabella's. "Can I tell you a secret?" she whispered. "Sure." "I think my daddy likes you." Isabella's heart stopped. "What makes you say that?" "He gets all smiley when he talks about you. And he changed his shirt 3 times this morning before we came here." Emma leaned in closer. "Do you like him back?" Isabella had no idea how to answer that question. "Your dad is a very good person." "That's not what I asked." "I know." Emma studied her with those serious eyes that were too old for a 7-year-old. "It's okay if you do. Daddy's been lonely since Mommy died. Mrs. Patterson says he needs to find someone nice. Are you nice?" "I'm trying to be." "Good. Because if you're mean to my daddy, I'll be very upset, and when I get upset, I cry a lot, and Daddy hates when I cry. Despite everything, Isabella smiled. I'll keep that in mind. Noah returned with drinks, and they spent the next hour talking about nothing important. Emma's school play, Noah's attempts to fix their leaking kitchen faucet, Isabella's complete lack of knowledge about plumbing. It was easy and comfortable and utterly terrifying, because this was what Isabella had been missing. Not grand romantic gestures or impressive dates at expensive restaurants. Just sitting in a coffee shop on a Saturday morning, listening to a 7-year-old explain the complex social dynamics of second grade while her father pretended not to be charmed by every word. Around 11, Emma announced she needed to use the bathroom. She skipped off, leaving Isabella and Noah alone for the first time. "Thanks for coming," Noah said quietly. "I know this is probably weird for you." "Why would it be weird?" "Because you're the CEO of a major tech company and I'm a mid-level analyst with a kid. We don't exactly run in the same circles." Isabella looked at him, really looked at him. He wasn't trying to impress her, wasn't angling for anything. He was just being honest about the gulf between them. "Maybe I'm tired of my circles," she said. "Are you okay? You seem off." "I'm fine." "You're a terrible liar." Isabella almost laughed. "I'm an excellent liar. I've been lying to myself for 12 years. Noah leaned forward, his voice gentle. "You want to talk about it?" And somehow, sitting in that coffee shop with this man she barely knew, Isabella found herself telling the truth. "I made a deal yesterday with Victor Langford. He's been building a case against me with the board, trying to paint me as emotionally unstable and making poor decisions. He threatened to send a memo that would destroy my credibility." Noah's jaw tightened. "What kind of memo?" "One that suggested I was showing inappropriate favoritism to certain employees, specifically you." "Me? We had one dinner, with my 7-year-old daughter present." "It doesn't matter. Victor knows how to spin things. So I made a deal. I agreed to step down at the end of Q4 in exchange for him dropping it." Noah stared at her. "You're giving up your company." "I'm giving up my position. The company will survive without me." "But you built it. It's yours. Nothing's really yours if you can sacrifice it all to protect it." Isabella traced the rim of her coffee cup. "And maybe it's time. Maybe I've been holding on to something that stopped mattering years ago." "You don't believe that." "I don't know what I believe anymore." Isabella looked up at him. "A month ago, I had everything figured out. I knew exactly who I was and what I wanted. Then you walked out of a gala to read your daughter a bedtime story, and suddenly everything I'd built felt empty." Noah was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful. "Isabella, I'm flattered, but I need you to understand something. I'm not looking for romance. I'm not looking for anything complicated. My life is Emma. That's it. That's all I have room for." The words hurt more than they should have. "I know." "Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're going through some kind of crisis and maybe projecting onto me because I represent something you think you want. That's not—" Isabella stopped, "because maybe it was exactly that." "I don't know. Maybe you're right. Maybe I just saw you with Emma and wanted what you have. A life that means something. Your life means something. You've built an incredible company. You've created jobs, changed the industry, proven everyone wrong who said you couldn't do it. And I did it all alone. No one's waiting for me when I get home. No one runs into my arms like I'm the safest place in the world. I have success, Noah. That's all I have." "Then maybe the problem isn't the success. Maybe the problem is thinking you have to choose between success and connection." Emma came skipping back before Isabella could respond, launching into a story about the bathroom having a very squeaky door and how it sounded like a mouse. They stayed another 30 minutes, then walked together through the neighborhood. Emma chattered between them, occasionally grabbing both their hands and making them swing her. It should have felt awkward. Instead, it felt natural, like something Isabella had been missing without knowing it. When they reached Noah's car, Emma hugged Isabella with the unself-conscious affection of a child. "Will you come to my winter concert?" she asked, looking up at Isabella with hopeful eyes. "It's in December. I'm playing a snowflake." "Emma," Noah said gently. "Isabella's probably busy." "I'd love to come," Isabella heard herself say. Emma's face lit up. "Really? Promise?" "Promise." Noah looked at Isabella over his daughter's head, and something passed between them. Not romance, Not even attraction, really. Just understanding. December 16th, Noah said quietly. 7 o'clock at Lincoln Elementary. I'll be there. Isabella walked back to her car feeling lighter than she had in weeks. She'd just committed to a second-grade winter concert in the middle of what should be the busiest quarter of her career. It was impractical and unprofessional and absolutely the right choice. For the first time in 12 years, Isabella Monroe was choosing something other than work. The following weeks were brutal. Isabella threw herself into the European expansion with manic energy, determined to finish what she'd started before stepping down. She worked 16-hour days, attended endless meetings, negotiated contracts in 3 different time zones. But she also did something she'd never done before. She left work at 5:30 every Thursday. Because Emma had art class on Thursdays, and Noah had mentioned that the school's art program was barely funded, surviving on donations and volunteer time. So Isabella started showing up. She didn't announce herself, didn't make a big production of it. She just quietly wrote a check to the school's arts foundation. Anonymous, substantial enough to fund the program for 2 years, and then started volunteering on Thursday afternoons. The art teacher, a woman named Ms. Chen, who looked like she'd been teaching since the Carter administration, accepted Isabella's help with minimal questions, probably because she was desperately understaffed and didn't care if her new volunteer was the CEO of a tech company or a convicted felon as long as she could help organize supplies. Isabella found herself sitting at kid-sized tables, helping second graders mix paint colors and explaining why you shouldn't eat the glue even though it smells good. Emma was delighted to have her there, showing off every project, introducing Isabella to her friends as my daddy's friend who has a fancy office. Noah showed up at pickup time looking tired and grateful, and every week he'd thank Isabella for coming. You don't have to do this, he said one Thursday in early November. I know. Then why? Isabella looked at Emma, who was showing another kid her painting of what might have been a flower, or possibly an octopus. Because this matters, more than quarterly reports or board meetings, or any of the stuff I usually spend my time on. You're a strange person, Isabella Monroe. I'm figuring that out. At work, the tension with Victor was a constant simmer. He watched her like a hawk, looking for any excuse to accelerate the timeline. Isabella was careful to avoid Noah at the office, communicating only through email and keeping everything scrupulously professional. But she couldn't avoid the board forever. In late November, Martin Reeves called an emergency meeting. Isabella walked into the conference room to find all 7 board members assembled, with Victor sitting in the corner looking like he'd just won the lottery. Isabella, Martin said, his voice heavy with something that might have been regret. We need to discuss the company's leadership structure. I'm aware. Victor and I have already discussed this. I'll be stepping down at the end of Q4. We think it should happen sooner. Isabella's stomach dropped. How much sooner? End of December. We want Victor in place before the new year. That's 5 weeks. The European expansion isn't complete. Victor can handle the expansion. Isabella looked around the table. Sarah Goldstein wouldn't meet her eyes. David Park was studying his phone. Only Jennifer, sitting at the far end, looked genuinely angry. This is premature, Jennifer said. Isabella's doing exactly what she said she'd do, finishing her projects and preparing for transition. The board has made its decision, Martin said. Isabella, we appreciate everything you've done for this company, but it's time for new leadership. Isabella felt rage and humiliation burning through her, but beneath it was something else, something that might have been relief. Fine, she said quietly. I'll prepare a transition plan. Already done. Victor slid a folder across the table. I've outlined the handoff process. You'll have until December 31st to close out current projects. After that, I'll take over as CEO. Isabella took the folder without opening it. Is there anything else? Just one thing. Martin cleared his throat uncomfortably. There have been concerns raised about your conduct over the past few weeks, specifically regarding Noah Bennett. Isabella's blood went cold. What about him? You've been spending significant time with him and his daughter, volunteering at her school, meeting for coffee. It creates an appearance of impropriety. There's nothing improper. I've been volunteering at an underfunded elementary school art program. Noah's daughter happens to be in that program. Nevertheless, it looks inappropriate. We're asking you to cease all personal contact with Mr. Bennett, effective immediately. Jennifer stood up. This is bullshit. Isabella's private life is none of the board's business. It is when it affects the company's reputation, Victor said smoothly. And frankly, a CEO showing special treatment to a mid-level analyst she's personally involved with raises serious ethical questions. I'm not personally involved with him. Then it should be easy to stop seeing him. Victor smiled. Consider it a condition of your severance package. Isabella felt the trap close around her. If she argued, she'd look guilty. If she agreed, she'd be admitting there was something to hide. Fine, she said. No personal contact with Noah Bennett. Are we done? She left before they could answer, walking straight to her office and closing the door. Then she sat at her desk and tried not to scream. She'd given up her company, given up her position, and now they were asking her to give up the one thing that had made the past month bearable. The Thursday afternoons with Emma, the occasional text messages with Noah, the feeling that maybe she was becoming something other than the Ice Queen. Her phone buzzed. A text from Noah. Emma's asking if you're coming to art class tomorrow. I told her you're probably busy with work stuff. She's disappointed, but she understands. Isabella stared at the message for a long time. She could text back something vague and professional, could start the process of separating herself from Noah and Emma before it got any more complicated. Or she could tell the truth. She typed, I'll be there. I promised Emma I'd come, and I don't break promises. Noah's response came a few minutes later. Thank you. It means a lot to her. And to me. Isabella set down her phone and made a decision. The board could have her company. They could have her title. They could have everything she'd built over 12 years of blood and sacrifice. But they couldn't have this. Couldn't force her to abandon a 7-year-old girl who'd somehow wormed her way into Isabella's carefully protected heart. If showing up for Emma cost Isabella her severance package, so be it. Some things were worth more than money. The next Thursday, Isabella showed up to art class like always. Emma's face lit up when she saw her. You came! I was afraid you wouldn't! I promised, didn't I? They spent the afternoon making paper snowflakes for the winter concert. Emma was terrible at cutting straight lines, so her snowflakes looked more like irregular blobs with holes. She thought they were perfect. These are going to be decorations for my concert, she explained seriously. Everyone's parents are supposed to make them, but Daddy's not good at art stuff, so I asked if you could help me instead. I'd be honored. They cut snowflakes until Isabella's hands cramped, and Emma had paper scraps in her hair. When Noah showed up at 5:30, he took one look at them covered in paper bits and laughed. Productive afternoon? Very, Isabella said. Emma's making enough snowflakes to cause a blizzard. That's my girl, overachiever. Noah helped Emma gather her things. You want to grab dinner with us? There's a pizza place nearby that Emma loves. Isabella knew she should say no. Knew that every minute she spent with them was ammunition Victor could use. But Emma was looking at her with such hopeful eyes, and Noah was smiling like it was the most natural thing in the world, and Isabella was so tired of doing the smart thing. I'd love that. Dinner was chaos. Emma spilled soda on herself, argued passionately that pineapple belonged on pizza, and told a rambling story about a boy in her class who ate paste and had to go to the nurse. Noah listened with the patience of a saint, occasionally interjecting with questions that kept the story moving. Isabella watched them and felt something shift in her chest. This wasn't perfect. It was messy and loud and occasionally sticky. But it was real in a way her penthouse and her empire had never been. After dinner, Noah walked Isabella to her car while Emma skipped ahead, burning off energy. Thanks for coming, he said quietly. You didn't have to. I wanted to. Even though it's probably causing you problems at work? Isabella looked at him sharply. How did you know? Victor's been asking questions. About us. Whether we're dating, how often we see each other. I'm not stupid, Isabella. I can tell he's building a case. He already built it. The board's forcing me out 5 weeks early, partially because of the Whitmore thing, partially because they think I'm emotionally compromised. By you. Noah stopped walking. I'm sorry. I never meant to us. This isn't your fault. Victor was looking for an excuse to push me out. You just happened to be convenient. So what are you going to do? I'm going to finish the European expansion, transition my projects, step down with my head high, and keep showing up to art class on Thursdays because I promised Emma I would. The board won't like that. The board can bite me. Noah actually laughed. There's the Ice Queen I've heard about. I'm not the Ice Queen anymore. I'm just Isabella, and Isabella keeps her promises. They stood there in the parking lot, Emma dancing around a lamppost nearby, and Isabella felt the last of her carefully constructed walls crumble. I'm going to miss this, she said quietly. When everything's over and I'm not coming to art class anymore, I'm going to miss it. Who says you have to stop coming? Emma loves having you there, and honestly, so do I. You barely know me. I know you're brilliant and terrifying and secretly kind. I know you care more than you let on. I know you show up when it matters. Noah smiled. That's enough for me. I don't know what I'm doing, Noah. I'm giving up my company, throwing away 12 years of work. And for what? To volunteer at an elementary school art program? Is that really what you think you're doing? Throwing it away? What else would you call it? I'd call it choosing something different, something that matters in a different way. Noah looked at Emma, now attempting to cartwheel unsuccessfully. When Rachel died, I had to make a choice. Keep climbing the corporate ladder and miss Emma growing up, or step back and be the parent she needed. Everyone told me I was throwing away my career, wasting my potential. But you did it anyway. Because I realized potential isn't just about how high you climb. It's about how much you matter to the people who need you. He turned back to Isabella. You matter to Emma. You matter to that art program. Maybe that's not building an empire, but it's building something real. Isabella felt tears prick her eyes. She couldn't remember the last time she'd cried. I don't know how to be someone who matters to people instead of shareholders. You're already doing it. You just have to stop being afraid of it. Emma came running back, breathless. Daddy, can Isabella come to my concert? Please? She promised, but I want to make sure. December 16th, Isabella said. 7 o'clock. I'll be there. Even if you're busy? Even if I'm busy. Emma hugged Isabella hard, and Isabella hugged her back, feeling something warm and terrifying settle in her chest. This was what she'd been missing, this feeling of being needed for something other than her brain or her strategic vision or her ability to close deals. Just being needed. The next 3 weeks were a blur. Isabella worked 18-hour days closing out projects, documenting processes, preparing Meridian for life without her. The European expansion launched successfully. The Q4 numbers came in strong. Everything was perfect, except Isabella felt like she was dying inside. Every Thursday, she showed up to art class. Every Thursday, Emma talked about the winter concert. And every Thursday, Isabella felt the distance between her old life and whatever came next growing wider. On December 15th, the day before the concert, Isabella cleaned out her office. 12 years of work fit into 3 boxes. Awards, photos from conferences, a few books she'd reference. The rest was just stuff. Expensive stuff, but still just stuff. Jennifer came by as Isabella was taping up the last box. I can't believe you're actually going through with this, Jennifer said. I don't have much choice. You always have a choice. You could fight, expose Victor's manipulation, go to the press, and destroy the company in the process? No. I built Meridian to last. It'll be better without me dragging it into a scandal. Jennifer sat on the edge of Isabella's desk. Do you regret it? Any of it? Building the company? No, sacrificing everything else to build it? Every single day. What are you going to do after? I have no idea. Isabella looked around her empty office. For the first time in my adult life, I have absolutely no plan. It's terrifying. It's also kind of exciting. You could do anything. I'm not sure I know how to do anything except be a CEO. Then learn. You're brilliant, Izzy. You'll figure it out. They hugged, and Isabella let herself be human for just a moment. Let herself feel the loss and the fear and the strange relief of knowing that tomorrow, for the first time in 12 years, she'd wake up with nowhere she had to be. That night, Isabella couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the concert, about seeing Emma perform, about sitting in an elementary school gym instead of a boardroom. At midnight, she got a text from Noah. Emma's too excited to sleep. She's practicing her snowflake dance in the living room. Send help. Isabella smiled. Tell her to save her energy for tomorrow. She needs to be perfect. She doesn't need to be perfect. She just needs to have fun. Those aren't mutually exclusive, says the recovering perfectionist. I'm not recovering. I'm just relocating my perfectionism to different areas. Like cutting paper snowflakes? Exactly like cutting paper snowflakes. There was a pause, then, I'm glad you're coming tomorrow. It means a lot to Emma, to both of us. Isabella stared at that message for a long time before responding. I wouldn't miss it for anything. December 16th dawned cold and bright. Isabella spent the morning finishing the last of her transition documents, then officially submitted her resignation effective December 31st. She expected to feel devastated. Instead, she felt light. At 6:30, she drove to Lincoln Elementary. The parking lot was packed with parents, and the gym was decorated with the snowflakes Emma and her classmates had made. They hung from the ceiling on fishing line, spinning slowly in the heat from the vents. Isabella found a seat in the back and waited. The concert was exactly what you'd expect from a second-grade winter performance. Kids forgot their lines. Someone's costume fell off mid-song. A kid in the front row waved at his parents through the entire show. It was perfect. Emma appeared in the third number, wearing white and covered in glitter. She was supposed to be a snowflake drifting gently to earth. She looked more like a glitter bomb having a seizure. Isabella loved every second of it. When Emma spotted her in the crowd, her face lit up so bright it could have powered the building. She waved enthusiastically, completely breaking character, and Isabella waved back. After the concert, parents crowded the gym, taking photos and congratulating their kids. Isabella hung back, not sure where she fit in this world of normal families and PTA moms. Then Emma came running through the crowd, still covered in glitter, and crashed into Isabella's legs. "You came! You really came! I promised, didn't I? But you're so important and busy, and I thought maybe you'd forget." "I didn't forget." Isabella knelt down to Emma's level. "You were amazing up there. I messed up the turning part. I didn't notice." "Really? Really? You were the best snowflake in the whole show." Emma hugged her hard, getting glitter all over Isabella's coat. Isabella didn't care. Noah appeared, phone in hand. "Picture time. Emma, go stand with Isabella." "Can we take one with all three of us?" Emma asked. Noah hesitated, glancing at Isabella. She knew what he was thinking, that this looked like a family photo, that it would be weird, that they weren't that. "Yes," Isabella said firmly. "Let's take one together." They found another parent to take the photo. Emma stood between them, holding both their hands, grinning like she'd won the lottery. Noah's arm was around Isabella's shoulders, and Isabella's was around his waist, and it felt so natural it scared her. The flash went off, capturing the moment forever. Later, after most of the crowd had cleared out, Noah walked Isabella to her car. Emma had gone home with a friend for a sleepover, so it was just the two of them in the cold December night. "Thanks for coming," Noah said. "I know how busy you are with the transition. I'm not busy anymore. Tomorrow's my last day." Noah stopped walking. "You're really doing it, leaving Meridian." "They made the choice pretty easy, but yeah, I'm done." "How do you feel?" "Terrified. Relieved. Like I'm jumping off a cliff and I have no idea if there's water at the bottom." Isabella looked up at the sky. "But also, like maybe I'm finally doing the right thing." "What's next?" "I have no idea. That's the terrifying part." They reached her car, and Isabella turned to face him. There was something she needed to say, something she'd been holding back for weeks. "I need you to know something," she said. "When I started coming to Emma's art class, it wasn't entirely altruistic. I was lonely and lost, and you two represented something I thought I wanted. Jennifer thinks I projected onto you. Victor thinks I'm having some kind of crisis. They're probably both right." Noah was quiet, waiting. "But somewhere along the way, it stopped being about what I wanted from you and started being about just showing up for Emma, for the art program, for something that mattered." Isabella took a breath. "I don't know what we are. I don't know if we're friends or something more complicated. But I want you to know that whatever happens next, I'm grateful. You showed me it was possible to care about something beyond quarterly earnings." "Isabella, you don't have to say anything. I just needed you to know." Noah stepped closer, and for a moment Isabella thought he might kiss her. Instead, he took her hand. "I'm not good at this," he said quietly. "After Rachel died, I shut down. Put all my energy into Emma because that was safe. Didn't let anyone else in because it hurt too much to lose someone. I understand. But you broke through anyway. Somehow you and your fancy office and your terrible attempts at cutting straight lines made me remember that maybe I'm allowed to care about someone other than my daughter." Isabella's heart was pounding. "What are you saying?" I'm saying I don't know what we are either, but I'd like to find out. If you're willing to be patient with a widowed single dad who has no idea how to date and whose daughter will absolutely drive you crazy. Emma doesn't drive me crazy. Give it time. She once spent 3 hours explaining the difference between regular dragons and flying dragons. I like dragons. Then we might actually have a shot. They stood there in the parking lot, hands linked, breath visible in the cold air. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't some grand declaration. It was just two broken people deciding to be broken together. So what now? Isabella asked. Now I take you to dinner, somewhere nice, where Emma can't interrupt us every 5 seconds to explain her latest dragon theory. I like her dragon theories. You say that now. Wait until she starts the one about underwater dragons and their gills. Isabella laughed, and it felt good. When? How about tomorrow? After you officially stop being a CEO and start being just Isabella? Just Isabella. I like the sound of that. Noah kissed her then, soft and careful, like he was afraid she might break. Isabella kissed him back, feeling something warm and real unfold in her chest. When they pulled apart, Noah was smiling. I should warn you, dating me means you're also dating Emma. She's part of the package. I wouldn't want it any other way. And she's going to have opinions. Lots of opinions about everything. I can handle opinions. And she'll probably try to set us up on playdates at kid-friendly restaurants with terrible pizza. I happen to like terrible pizza. Noah laughed and pulled her close. You're going to regret this. Probably, but I've spent 12 years making smart decisions. Maybe it's time to make some terrible ones. They kissed again, and this time it was deeper, more certain. Isabella felt the last of her walls crumble. Felt herself becoming someone new, someone who chose people over profits, connection over control, love over loneliness. It was terrifying. It was perfect. Isabella's last day at Meridian was surreal. She walked through the building she'd built, saying goodbye to people who'd worked for her for years. Some were sad to see her go. Others were clearly relieved. Victor watched from his new office, her old office, with barely concealed triumph. At 5 o'clock, Isabella walked out of the building for the last time as CEO. Jennifer was waiting by the door. How does it feel? She asked. Like I'm walking away from everything I worked for, and like I'm finally walking towards something that matters. Very poetic. Did Noah help you with that line? Shut up. They hugged, and Jennifer whispered, I'm proud of you, Izzy. You did the scary thing. The scary thing would have been staying. Isabella drove home to her penthouse, packed 2 suitcases, and put the place on the market. She didn't need 1,200 square feet of expensive emptiness anymore. Then she drove to Noah's house, where he and Emma were waiting with takeout Chinese food and a terrible movie about talking animals. They ate sitting on the floor because Emma insisted it was more fun that way. They watched the movie, Emma falling asleep halfway through, curled up between them. Noah carried her to bed, then came back and sat next to Isabella on the couch. You okay? He asked. I gave up $1 billion company to eat Chinese food on your floor and watch a movie about a dog who thinks he's a cat. And it's the best night I've had in 12 years. Noah kissed her temple. Just wait until Emma wakes up at 6 tomorrow and demands pancakes. Then you'll really question your life choices. I'm looking forward to it. And she was. For the first time in her adult life, Isabella Monroe was looking forward to tomorrow, not because of what she'd achieve or accomplish or build, but because of who would be there when she woke up. A man who'd rebuilt his life around love instead of ambition. A little girl who believed in dragons and thought Isabella hung the moon. A future that had nothing to do with quarterly earnings and everything to do with showing up for the people who mattered. 6 months later, Isabella was working as a consultant for tech startups, helping young CEOs avoid the mistakes she'd made. She made a fraction of what she'd earned at Meridian, but she also left work at 5:30 every day and never checked email after dinner. She and Noah were taking things slow, slower than Isabella had ever taken anything in her life. But slow felt right, felt sustainable. Emma called her Isabella most of the time. But occasionally, Isabella, who's not my mom but is kind of like a mom. It was clunky and perfect. They had dinner together most nights, sometimes at Noah's small bungalow, sometimes at the apartment Isabella had rented, much smaller than her penthouse, much warmer. Emma had already claimed the guest room for sleepovers and filled it with dragon drawings. On a warm June evening, the three of them walked through the city toward a small ice cream shop Emma loved. Emma skipped ahead, chasing a pigeon, while Noah and Isabella walked hand in hand. "You ever regret it?" Noah asked. "Giving up Meridian?" Isabella thought about it honestly. "Sometimes. Usually when I see quarterly reports and realize I could have done that better. Or when I read about Victor making decisions I disagree with. But then I come home, and Emma's waiting to show me her latest dragon drawing, and you're making dinner even though you're terrible at cooking, and I realize I traded an empire for a life. And a life is worth so much more. Even when the life involves explaining to Emma why she can't have a real dragon as a pet? Especially then." Emma came running back, breathless. "Can I get the kind with gummy bears in it?" "You can get whatever you want, Sunshine," Noah said. "Isabella, what are you getting?" "I don't know. What do you recommend?" Emma grabbed Isabella's hand, pulling her toward the shop. "Come on, I'll show you all the best ones." Isabella let herself be pulled along, feeling something warm and complete settle in her chest. She'd spent 12 years building an empire, proving she didn't need anyone, climbing to the top alone. And then she'd met a quiet analyst who chose bedtime stories over networking events, and a 7-year-old who believed in dragons, and somewhere in the mess of it all, Isabella had learned the truth she'd spent her whole life running from. Success meant nothing if nobody was waiting for you when the day ended. But now, walking through the glowing city streets toward an ice cream shop, with a man who made her laugh, and a little girl who'd somehow claimed a piece of her heart, Isabella finally understood what it meant to have everything. Not money, not power, not a corner office or a billion-dollar company. Just this. 2 people who were waiting for her, who'd be waiting tomorrow, and the day after that, and all the days that followed. That was worth more than any empire she could build. That was worth everything.